The World Health Organization continues to show their questionable colors as corrupt and utterly inept at handling their job, both by the fact that they have openly endorsed and proclaimed abortion as a fundamental and essential service during the coronavirus pandemic, but also because they continue to back and defend the corrupt communist regime's handling of coronavirus. Pro-life advocates are getting arrested for helping women outside of a clinic in Carolina, and North Dakota refuses to cave to social pressure and mandate that their citizens shelter at home. Is this hazardously dangerous, or is this maybe have some wisdom to it? We're going to talk about mandating social distancing and staying at home and the wisdom or lack thereof of those orders. And we're also going to cover Disney's latest movie, Onward. All that and more on this episode of Deconstructing the Culture. I am your host, Elisa Steele. All right then, conservative babes, thank you so much for joining me this week on this episode. I am going to answer for at least a little while the one question that I most get consistently in this period of life, which is, how are you doing, Elisa? How's the baby? How is your pregnancy progressing? Thank you so much for everyone who's been asking that on Facebook and Instagram. I am so touched. I feel a little bit awkward answering that question every time because the answer is always the same. So if you want to ask me this question again in 2 weeks, I'll probably tell you the same thing. And it's, hey bro, I throw up every day and I'm growing a baby. I'm both deliriously happy and miserable at the same time, but thanks for asking. So that's your baby bump update. Me and my husband, officially halfway through this journey of pregnancy with baby number 2. Obviously, you know, from previous episodes or following me on Instagram that we miscarried our first, but we're very excited for this rainbow baby, and we just cannot wait for August 2020, and we will announce any happy news, including gender and any other updates, on Instagram and here, so stay tuned. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. I had a different topic planned, as so often happens, and then something big happens and it outrages me or it outrages you, or maybe we just need to talk about it. So I decided to cover it here, and this is what happened with this particular story. Well, WHO, the World Health Organization, while we've known to be questionable for quite some time, which quite frankly leads me to believe that maybe we should not be its biggest financial supporters. To my understanding, that has been us for a very long time, the United States, that is. They have come out and said that essential healthcare services during coronavirus include abortion. Now, I don't understand, and we've talked about this before, but just for the record, I don't understand how killing children is an essential healthcare service. It's an oxymoron, because the act of purposely killing a child is not healthcare. That is death care, if anything, or death lack of care, depending on how you want to phrase that. But the truth is, killing an innocent human being for no reason other than the fact that it is not desirable to the parent is not healthcare. Healthcare is healing a sick person, providing health services, but killing a child is not healthcare, just for the record. So the World Health Organization, this is an article from the Daily Wire, they have been struggling to explain its initial response to the coronavirus pandemic, particularly in its deference to the Chinese authorities and the official Chinese government reports about the spread of the virus. So I told you we're going to talk about 2 things that are majorly wrong and glaring us in the face when it comes to coronavirus. This is one of them. So they have 2 things going on that actually that's not true. There's a lot of other things that concern me with the World Health Organization, but let's just focus on these 2 today. So they came out with an edict that says when it comes to COVID-19, the virus should not hinder the availability of abortion services. Oh, really? Okay, all right. So according to a statement from WHO itself, it actually says in a statement from the WHO, which sounds funny to me. It's the World Health Organization, so it makes sense, but saying the WHO, which is kind of funny to me. Side note. So via the Daily Caller News Foundation, it says, quote, services related to reproductive health are considered a part of essential services during COVID COVID-19 outbreak. That means that countries demanding businesses lock down to stop or slow the spread of the coronavirus should refrain from locking down abortion providers or forcing them to turn over much needed personal protection equipment, even though doctors and hospitals are canceling every other form of elective surgery. Let me pause right there. Yes, I have a lot of friends and family who had surgeries scheduled and had to cancel them. One of them can't even walk around because she needs two hip replacements so badly. She can't even walk around and interact with her grandkids. And this has been a very long ongoing issue for her. And now that surgery's been delayed quite some time. You're talking about a surgery that's drastically going to affect her quality of life, and that's canceled, and understandably so. Of course, we need the personal protection equipment, we need the mask, we need the resources to take care of coronavirus patients. I get it. I'm on board with that. I can see the wisdom and the logic to putting that on pause. Now, why should that be put on pause? But we should make it a definitely high priority, keep it in the books services to kill human beings, including if it puts the doctors or nurses performing on that patient at risk, such as if that person had coronavirus. I'll get to that in just one second. The WHO is even demanding that abortions be given to those who test positive for coronavirus, even if that procedure, again, puts both patient and caregivers at risk. It says, quote, "Women's choices and rights to sexual and reproductive health care should be respected, irrespective of whether or not she has suspected or confirmed COVID-19 infection," the group said. Wow. So not only are you going to take an elective life-destroying surgery and put it as a priority, but you're also going to put others at risk on purpose for no reason other than the fact that having a child isn't exactly what she feels like doing right that minute. Wow. I see where your priorities are, and it's definitely not with human life, not for the mother and not for the doctor and not for the child for sure. Just in case the message wasn't clear enough, the World Health Organization closed its statement by demanding that countries provide universal health care to all residents, and those universal health care systems include abortion on demand. Quote, "Sexual and reproductive health care is integral to universal health coverage and achieving the right to health." The right to health? The right to whose health? The right to whose health? Because it's not going to make the mother healthier by killing her child because she doesn't feel like having one. It's not going to make the child healthier by being killed, poisoned, or ripped apart in its mother's womb. So whose health, the right to health, are we really concerned about here? Because it's not the human being growing that's innocent, had no choice in its conception. They continue here, quote, "This includes contraceptive, quality health care during and after pregnancy and childbirth, and safe abortion to the full extent of the law," the group said. All right, I'm just gonna speak up as a fellow pregnant woman during the pandemic and tell you, yeah, COVID-19 is changing a lot about what's happening in our world, especially when it comes to the healthcare of women who are pregnant. I am currently facing, along with close friends and family members of mine who are due much sooner than I am, who are due in the next couple of weeks, or who are due a couple of weeks ago and had their baby just recently, or due in the next month. At least I'm only halfway through. I've still got another 20 weeks before I have to figure out how this is going to affect me personally when it comes to the birth of my child. But I'm telling you right now, mothers are having to give birth without their support there. Mothers are having to give birth without their doulas or their own mother. They're maybe only being able to allow a spouse, if even that. If they're having a C-section, probably not even their spouse with them. We're making sacrifices right and left, even for mothers who are giving birth to their children. I personally can't go in for an appointment. I'm having virtual appointments only for at least the next few months. And the appointments are being spread out longer than they should. I'm not going to say should, but ordinarily would. They would ordinarily take place more frequently than they are right now. And this is all not because of my birth center, but everything to do with the government and the mandates and the recommendations. It's all following WHO's guidelines. But apparently WHO is going to place the healthy care and birth of a human child and taking care of the mother right up there on a pedestal right next to mothers who want to kill their babies. That's sick. That is sick and wrong. Okay? Truly, truly nasty. And on top of that, we're also having to take precautions about how we can give birth. Women right now, I don't know what it's going to look like for me in a few months from now, but women right now at the birth clinic where I go to are being told we can't have home births. I personally had planned on doing, and do at least for the time being, plan on having my baby at home. I might not be able to do that and might have to go in to a location on site to give birth because of current guidelines and restrictions. We're taking every possible step to try and make this process as safe for healthcare providers as possible. And yet the World Health Organization is saying, oh yeah, but if she tests positive for coronavirus, she should still get an abortion. Put those people at risk. Even though moms who are perfectly healthy can't give birth at home or the way that they had planned, or with their partner, or with their doula or their mother, that's just sick. We talk about prioritizing death over life, truly, in the most literal way, prioritizing death over life. Several states have closed abortion clinics, refusing to label abortion services as essential. Thankfully, we've had some really great wins in that area, especially I've been following closely my home state of Utah and how they're handling that. The thing is, though, Planned Parenthood and affiliated abortion groups are suing those states, so we'll definitely have to keep a close eye on how that turns out, claiming that shutting down these clinics, even during a global pandemic, is a violation of constitutional rights. You know, I think it's funny when people like to say constitutional rights. We love to throw that around, okay? But what makes me kind of chuckle is it's just kind of funny to me, because I'm just like, constitutional rights? You want to talk about constitutional rights? Have you even read the Constitution before? Because most senators and representatives and of like law officials haven't even read the Constitution, much less the most American citizens. We haven't read the Constitution. Now, I'm lucky that I grew up in a very I don't know, I was gonna give it like an extreme name, but now I'm thinking that's gonna sound bad. Let's just say I grew up in a home where the Constitution and America were very highly spoken of. So by the time I was 12 years old, I had memorized the Declaration of Independence and rewritten the Constitution in my own 12-year-old words. To say that I have at least a basic understanding of the Constitution is, I feel like, fair, okay? And in my very basic understanding, I'm not pretending to be a law expert. I am not pretending to be a lawyer or professor or someone who teaches this, okay? But in my very basic understanding of the Constitution, I have never, nor could I ever, find a clause in the Constitution that would make it my constitutional right to kill innocent human beings, innocent children, because I feel like it. Just saying, you're welcome to put it to the test. You're welcome to go read your own Constitution, leftists, and point to me where in the Constitution it provides the constitutional right to kill your child, because I can guarantee you it's not there. Many others who are much smarter than I am and who know their Constitution much better than I do have looked, and it's not there. So yeah, be careful how you throw around that whole violation of constitutional rights crap. I'm telling you right now, if a 12-year-old can figure out it's not there, you can definitely figure it out too. Now, of course, the commitment to abortion is the least of the World Health Organization's problems right now. On Monday, members of Congress, including Arizona Senator Martha McSally, she's a Republican, demanded that the United States investigate the World Health Organization and its ties to the Chinese government. Thank you. I feel like I've been saying this for weeks, and I know others have too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, someone in our government, for saying something and for speaking up. This is disgusting. They're particularly looking into why the World Health Organization took the Chinese information about the virus at face value, even as death rates continued to climb inside of China. McSally, Fox News reports, called the WHO's Director General, let's see if I say this right, Tedros Adhanom, I'm not even going to attempt that, Ghebreyesus, to resign. I know I slaughtered that name. I apologize, but you sound like a crap person, so maybe I'm not apologizing to you, sir, but I am apologizing to the listeners. Dr. Tedros deceived the world, McSally wrote on Twitter. At one point, he even praised China's transparency during this coronavirus response efforts, despite a mountain of evidence showing the regime concealed the severity of the outbreak. And this deception has cost lives, tens of thousands of lives, I might add. And like Sally probably couldn't fit into her tweet. Truly despicable how China has handled this, and even more that the World Health Organization has taken it at face value. It honestly, to me, it stinks of corruption, and to many others apparently too. Quote, in early February, days after President Trump put into place a travel ban for foreign nations who had recently been to China, Tedros he panned coronavirus responses that this was unnecessarily interfere with the international travel and trade, Fox News added. He also tweeted praise for China on March 20th. March 20th, guys. This is like, what? Not that long ago, a couple weeks ago. He said, for the first time, #China has reported no domestic #COVID-19 cases yesterday. This is an amazing achievement, which gives us all reassurance that the coronavirus can be beaten. Oh, really? Oh, really? Then how do you explain that China tried to reopen their economy, reopen theaters, and then quickly had to close down those theaters again? And yet, for some reason, they're still reporting no more outbreaks of the virus, no more deaths from the virus. Yeah, because that totally makes sense. Yeah, let's take that at face value. No, no, China is lying. And if you are saying that you believe them, you're lying too. At one point in January, this is laughable, who even tweeted that there was, quote, no clear evidence, unquote, that coronavirus spreads from person to person, a conclusion quickly revealed to be entirely false. Also, just on like a random note, I know a lot of y'all have been watching Tiger King, and apparently there's been a first reported case of a tiger at a zoo having coronavirus, which I think is interesting. I also read that Joe Exotic had coronavirus and got it from like other inmates. So yeah, tigers and coronavirus. This is going to be what we remember 2020 as. Before we go ahead and move on, I'm just going to remind you to take a minute to please subscribe, leave a review, especially those 5-star reviews and the written reviews mean a lot on iTunes. I don't know about you, but as a listener myself to podcasts, one of the very first things I do when I'm looking into potentially listening to a podcast, or maybe I've listened to a couple of episodes, but I want to know what other people have to say, I read those reviews. It's not just me as the podcast maker who reads those reviews, but other people do too, because as a listener myself, looking at new podcasts, I go and I read those reviews. I see what other people have to say, and it greatly impacts how many episodes or if I'll continually listen to a podcast. So please, if you love this podcast, please go ahead and subscribe on YouTube if you're a visual watcher, if you like to have your YouTube videos playing. That's my husband. He'd much rather have a YouTube video going of a podcast. I would probably rather listen on iTunes, but whatever you are, go ahead and like, subscribe, leave a review. It would mean a great deal, and go ahead and share this with a friend. All right, thank you. Now, let's talk about pro-lifers being arrested for their essential services versus Planned Parenthood's essential services. Now, what I mean by that is some states, as we were talking about just a few minutes ago, some states have proclaimed that coronavirus, that during this time that abortion's still medically, or that it's an essential healthcare option, right? Well, if they're essential still, then by that logic, if women who need help with their pregnancies, if they need help and they can go to an abortion facility, then by that logic, we should also be able to keep pregnancy resource centers open to help those same women, and hopefully, preferably for both mother and baby's sake, help them decide to keep their child, take care of their child, put their child up for adoption, whatever that means, rather than abort, which hurts mother and child. Now, unfortunately, this is an article I'm going to read to you from the Charlotte Observer. They wrote a great article where Senator Cruz made some comments about the abortion protest under the North Carolina stay-at-home order and how it was unconstitutional. I actually tend to agree that direction. So police on Saturday, this last weekend, charged 8 Charlotte abortion protesters with violating North Carolina's COVID-19 related ban on mass gatherings. Now, something I want to point out that this article I don't feel like puts us clearly, but I want you to keep in mind as we go into it, is that there apparently, according to eyewitnesses and people who were there, who were talking about this on Twitter, this is all me reading it. I wasn't there obviously personally. Apparently there are a lot of people at the public parks on the weekends especially, and definitely more than 50 people. So the fact that there were arrests by police officers and law enforcement with people peacefully trying to help women outside of an abortion clinic, the fact that those were selectively harassed and arrested and not the people at the public park tells you that this is a political ploy, that this is politically motivated and driven, not necessarily because nobody was out anywhere, nobody was out in more than numbers of 50 anywhere, no justice group. No, this is happening all over, and they were selectively targeted. Now, the arrest went national late Saturday when U.S. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas criticized the Charlotte Mecklenburg police. He said, quote, "This is an unconstitutional arrest." He tweeted, "Benham brothers," that's the name of the couple of the gentlemen who were arrested, "exercising their core First Amendment rights peacefully in a way that fully consists with public safety. Because elected Dems are pro-abortion, they are abusing their power in a one-sided way to silence pregnancy counselors." I believe this is absolutely true on face value. It looks like exactly what happened. According to the article, about 50 protesters gathered outside a Preferred Women's Health Center in Charlotte. According to the police, the center has been the scene of numerous other abortion protests over the years, so apparently this is kind of a hotspot. The size of the crowd violates the mass gathering provision in the state's stay-at-home order, police said, so officers asked everyone to leave. Again, why are they asking them to leave here but not necessarily at parks? I'm not saying that I know firsthand this is not happening at parks, but it seems like in my own experience here in the state of Florida, this is not necessarily a thing that's happening. We'll leave that to be determined in the next few days as we get more information. Quote, "After an initial request for compliance, 12 people who were in violation refused to leave. They were cited under state law for violation of emergency prohibitions and restrictions," according to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department news release. After police issued this citation, 8 of the protesters still refused to leave and were arrested. Police said they will release the names of the 8 protesters later. Video posted on the Facebook page for Love Life, a Charlotte-based group that opposes abortion, shows Charlotte Mecklenburg police cars outside the clinic Saturday. On Thursday, 4 people affiliated with Love Life filed a lawsuit in federal court against the Greensboro mayor and lieutenant with the Greensboro Police Department after they were arrested on March 28th for violating the stay-at-home orders of that city, and Guilford County were protesting outside of the abortion clinic there. Now, something that I want to point out is that the main argument for the pro-lifers who were standing out there is they're saying, first of all, we were not violating any social distancing laws. Those of us who were there with our organization, we were each of us staying more than 6 feet apart. We were washing our hands. We were practicing social distancing in the best way we could. They're saying there are a couple of the arguments that I'm seeing that were they're using to defend themselves is that it's a First Amendment right to freedom of speech and also to protest in front of the clinic. And also that they, under even emergency restrictions, that they were using their right to go on walks and be outside, which most states, especially I know for sure my state, have left provisions for, like, if you want to go on a walk, you're welcome to. Now, several days before Saturday's arrest, the executive director of the clinic told the Observer in an interview that protesters continued to show up at this location despite increasing restrictions in gathering during March. Now, obviously, this has been aggravating the director of this abortion clinic, so you can see how this is kind of built up in March. Calling it a, quote, public health nightmare, unquote, Hale said the protesters were not following social distancing during previous protests and did not wear gloves or masks when they approached patients coming to the clinic to speak with them, distribute literature, and try to convince them not to have an abortion. So essentially, if you read through this, the abortion director's kind of mad that this is happening and that this is not going away. They're mad that and calling it a public health nightmare when abortion is a public health nightmare, and they're using coronavirus and these emergency protections as a club to beat pro-lifers over the head. This is what I see just at face value. Quote, the size of the protest doesn't matter. It's not that they're it's that they're not adhering to social buffers, she said Tuesday. The invasion of space and potential exposure is really unsettling. What about the potential exposure women are getting by going to your clinic and having their babies killed? I'm worried about that. I think you should be too. It continues, and something that I want to bring up specifically is, first of all, I think it's concerning that the police are telling people that they can report on their neighbors, essentially, and if they're not following the stay-at-home order by calling 311. I don't feel like I need to make a lot of commentary on that. We're encouraging people in some states to report and tattletale on their neighbors. Just let that sink in for a second. Now, I want to read a tweet by the Benham brothers Twitter that they posted on their Twitter, I should say. They said, quote, "The sidewalk counselors stayed over 6 feet apart and there were less than 5 of them, yet the officers selectively enforced the law even though Cities for Life had less than 10 people. The sidewalk counselors stayed over 6 feet apart." And they actually have a video, which I thought was kind of impressive. I'm going to go ahead and play it. You can hear it here on the podcast if you're listening, or watch it here with me on YouTube. But it's a 45-second video. I'm going to play the whole thing because it kind of gives you an idea as to their mentality, the pro-life protesters, because they stayed very, very calm while asserting their right to be there and their rights in general to protest and be outside. So I'm going to go ahead and play that little video, and you'll have to let me know your thoughts. But mine so far is that they seem very calm. They seem to know what they're doing. They seem to be taking social distancing seriously while also striving to protect women and serve them best they can.
Not acting under advice of our attorney.
We have, I know you're acting under the advice of your attorney. We have the authority to be here.
We did not feel like we had firm legal standing.
I understand.
We would not be doing this.
I understand, and I appreciate your service.
Okay,
I really do.
So that's why all these police officers are here.
I understand.
We're prepared.
I'm very thankful
for this, and we, if you want to draw this line in the sand.
No, it's not me drawing the line in the sand. We are a recognized charity.
Who is it?
We are a recognized charity, and you know this. We are offering essential services to these mothers, and you know this. And we are practicing social distancing. We are doing everything well within the ordinance, well within the provisions.
It's a state statute.
It's well within the statute. We are doing everything.
Going back this way, partner. All right, thank you, sir.
So as you can see / hear, they're being very respectful. They're trying to be reasonable while also asserting that they can be there. Now, Ted Cruz tweeted about this, which I thought was interesting. He said, "My friend David Benham was unconstitutionally arrested today in North Carolina for peacefully providing pregnancy counseling outside an abortion clinic. If North Carolina deems abortion, quote, essential, then pregnancy care services are as well." Very solid point. He continues, "This is wrong. Governor Cooper should be ashamed." Any state that's allowing abortion to continue, especially during this pandemic, when we're so flooded in our media about how we need more personal protection gear and more staff and more face masks, and yet we're allocating those resources towards abortion centers where we're not protecting life, we're killing human life. Yeah, you should be ashamed. All right, I'm going to give you one other story that kind of should make us all think hard. Now, I kind of have to just tell you ahead of time, I was secretly, not so secretly, cheering on the governor of, I think it's South Carolina, or sorry, it's not South Carolina, South Dakota, as she gave her speech. She's a beautiful, beautiful woman. That has nothing to do with, like, obviously how smart she is, but it helps. She's beautiful and incredibly brilliant and very constitutionally minded, it sounds like. So she said that she came out with a speech, and it was very short, but she was very pointed. And she said, "I am not going to shut down my state." She's not going to, quote, "follow herd mentality," and that she's going to show real leadership, essentially. So let me give you the long and short of the story, and I'm going to give you some of my thoughts in between. So the Republican South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem, has refused to implement a lockdown order for her entire state despite intense national media pressure. I mean, you can just imagine right now. I think it's like 30 states have shut down. The ones who are holding out have got to be getting a lot of heat right now. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, Noem underscored the importance of federalism and rejected the, quote, one-size-fits-all, unquote, approach pushed in the mainstream. She says, "Our Constitution ensures that a citizen's right is protected. I agree with the role of our government as it is set forth in our state and in our national constitution. I took an oath to uphold these constitutions. My role with respect to public safety is something I take very seriously. The people themselves are primarily responsible for their safety. They are the ones who are entrusted with expansive freedoms, and they are free to exercise their rights to work, worship, and play, or to stay home, or to conduct social distancing. She says, the call to apply to a one-size-fits-all approach to this problem in South Dakota is herd mentality, not leadership. The nation's coronavirus hotspot is in New York City, where the entire state of New York has over 130,000 active cases and thus far over 4,000 coronavirus-associated fatalities. In South Dakota, where the population density and variables like mass transit heavily vary, there are only 288 active COVID-19 cases and 4 fatalities associated with the virus. She says, my responsibility is to respect the rights of the people who elected me and to manage our state operations in a way that reflects the realities of what we have going on here on the ground. Now, she says, on the foundation of our principles, common sense, and conservative values, the principles we hold dear in America, the facts, the science, and the data will guide our decisions making here in South Dakota. Now, I'm going to pause right there. She is saying what I have been talking about with friends and family for quite some time now, and I've been very hesitant to say anything publicly or to use my platform, both on social media and here on the podcast, to say my concerns, but for many, many weeks now, I've been very concerned. I am not telling you should not be social distancing. I want to make that perfectly clear. I am not telling you that you should not obey your state's stay at home or shelter at home ordinances or edicts, mandates, whatever it is called. But I do have some concerns. I have some concerns because I don't see how this is, first of all, constitutionally acceptable to order these wide sweeping, very broad, very controlling, government top heavy edicts. But not only am I not sure that that's constitutionally appropriate, but I think about it overall and I'm very alarmed at how it looks like conservatives are just rolling over, showing their bellies and saying, take whatever you want. Take whatever freedoms you want. Do whatever you want. We won't question it. We're scared. We're so scared of coronavirus. We're not going to question it. Maybe we should be questioning this. I'm going to actually go stronger than that. Not maybe, but we should be questioning this. I am not saying I'm a scientist. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. I'm not even a nurse. I am not saying I know what is best. I am not pretending to know what's best for our country and how to handle this pandemic. I am not arrogant enough to tell you that I have the answers. But when I look at this at face value with limited constitution, I say limited because I'm trying to be realistic with you. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm a constitutional expert. I'm just saying I've studied it. I've read it in context. I try to understand it. It's my daily goal to strive to understand our country and true principles of freedom and our founding fathers' visions for our country. That is what I'm trying to express to you. And what I'm expressing to you is that anytime I question, is this okay? Should I be concerned or alarmed at how far the government is going? I ask myself this question. I ask myself this question every day. And every subject, I ask myself what I was taught. Is this the proper role of government? The proper role of government is very limited. It is about securing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And public safety against a pandemic isn't necessarily in that. The government isn't necessarily, I would go so far as to venture that it's not the proper role of government to protect everyone from getting sick. I'm not saying we shouldn't be taking precautions. I'm not saying that we're not within our bounds to, say, shut down travel from China when we see that there is a pandemic potentially spreading that's life-threatening. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, whenever you wonder, and whenever I wonder, is this okay for the government to do? I ask myself, is this the proper role of government? And I am deeply questioning whether how far we are going to protect our country from this pandemic is the proper role of government or severe abuse of government power. That is all I am saying. I'm not saying that this is necessarily wrong, but I deeply question whether it is right. Okay? Now, while refusing a statewide lockdown, Noam, the governor, has consistently pushed social distancing practices and good hygiene for the citizens of South Dakota since February. She says, other than a select few, the work that the people of South Dakota have been doing has been tremendous and has been incredibly effective. We have been able to bend the curve a great deal, the governor said. The science tells us that we cannot stop the virus. Let me say that again in case you glazed over. She says, and I agree with her, the science tells us we cannot stop the virus, explained Noam, but what we are trying to do is slow the spread. We're trying to flatten the curve, and we're trying to make sure that the people in our healthcare system are not overwhelmed. According to the Sioux Falls Agris leader, more than 30 states across the country have issued a stay-at-home or shelter-in-place order since the pandemic caused by the new coronavirus began, and South Dakota is not the only holdout. However, North Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, and Arkansas have rejected blanket statewide stay-at-home orders as well, and for quite a while, Florida was holding out. We have a pretty conservative governor, Ron DeSantis, and he held out for a long time. It was only, I think, April 1st, so just under a week ago, that he ordered stay at home a stay at home order. And I very much and deeply question whether or not this is right. I question and am alarmed by how complacent the American people have been, including my conservative friends and family. I am not saying that we should go crazy and everybody should just ditch this and we should all just do whatever we want and go get arrested on beaches or throwing big parties. I'm not saying that, okay? What I am saying is perhaps the method behind it is right. Maybe social distancing is exactly what we need to do, but is enforcing it through the government the way it is being enforced through the government with tattletale neighbors and state troopers and National Guard, is that the proper role of government? And I have concerns. Let's just put it that way. And the only time will tell how I'm not under any illusions. I know that I should be concerned. I'm just not sure how concerned. So we'll see. Now, really quickly, we are over time already. I recently had the chance this weekend to watch the new Onward Disney movie that's out. It came out. It was going to be in theaters, or maybe it was in theaters for a minute, but then because of the coronavirus pandemic, Disney actually went ahead and put it on their Disney Plus app. So if you have the Disney Plus app, maybe you've already seen this has been available. I'm going to give you my quick rundown, especially for those of you who have kids. Straight out the door for adults only, I thought it was charming. If you like Disney animated movies, it's relatively charming and is cute. I think that the brother dynamic in it is pretty cute. Now, if you bring kids into the equation, I have some concerns, and I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it as a fully family-friendly, especially if you're more traditional like I am and you believe in family-friendly, family value-centered movies, which I don't think that this one necessarily was. It's a split family. I was going to say divorce, but no, I guess the father died maybe of cancer, but he died. He got sick when there's two brothers in it. When the younger brother was in utero with mom, his dad died. And it sets the premise pretty early on that this boy's biggest dreams in life, or he wishes that he could have met his father. And I won't give away the rest of the movie in case you just do decide to watch it and it's not relevant to this, but something that just kind of bothered me and I felt like was thrown in there and was completely unnecessary, not needed at all for the movie to be good. But of course, Disney has to throw in their social justice warrioring. So they add a lesbian police officer who talks about her partner and becoming a stepmom. And then it looked like a potential another lesbian couple in a kind of a passing family scene. But either way, the lesbian police officer was very clear, even before she said something verbally, talking about being lesbian or having a partner. I was kind of looking at my husband being like, she's going to either be trans or lesbian. I can already tell by like the way that they've molded this character, made her kind of seem more masculine. Not that I'm saying that's always going to be the case, but it just kind of seemed that's the way they're angling. And of course, it was right. It's Disney. What do we expect? So I'm not going to recommend this as a family-friendly movie. I have young siblings who are under the age of 10. I'm not going to watch this movie with them. If you're an adult who enjoys Disney animated movies, and you'll find it charming, somewhat predictable, but with a very cute tied-up ending that you're not necessarily going to have expected. Now, good in the world. Oh, and I also want to add, Chris Pratt was one of the voices of the brothers. I always love Chris Pratt in basically anything. My husband says he is a one-dimensional character and he's the same character in everything, which is kind of true. But I think Chris Pratt is adorable. And I think maybe I'm just biased because I like him on Instagram and his like farming tweets and stuff about just like having lambs and stuff. And I just think he's funny. So I enjoyed, having his voice play the character of one of the brothers. So I really like that. If you're a Chris Pratt fan, maybe you'll enjoy that too. Now, good in the world, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up. I love this story, and it's something I really wanted to share with you. We hear all the time, and I get to share stories with you occasionally of foster parents, parents who adopt whole, families of kids all at the same time, a dad who will adopt a Down syndrome baby and, love her no matter what. There's all kinds of beautiful foster care and adoption stories. This one I felt like was unique, and I wanted to share it with you. Essentially, these beautiful, beautiful people, this is taken from an article at Live Action, huge huge fan of live action, I should say. That sounded funny. This family adopted a pregnant teenager into their family. I just thought it was so sweet. So basically, Tamara Norman and her husband were the parents of 2 children. They had dreams of retiring early and traveling, but all that changed in 2013 when they decided to become foster parents. Over 6.5 years, they were taking over 20 foster children, including a pregnant 15-year-old. So you can tell just from the premise, they're beautiful, big-hearted people. I love that. So the couple who had welcomed many foster children, including a premature baby with health issues and a child whose mother was in jail, they brought in 2 young sisters into their home. They would eventually adopt, and a baby boy who would permanently join their family as well. But a pregnant teen was something that was new for them. This teen girl was due to give birth in 3 weeks, and she was days she couldn't stay at the shelter she was at, essentially. And essentially what was going to happen is after she gave birth to the baby, if she wasn't taken in by this foster family, her future was to give birth to the baby. The baby would have gone to a foster family. This girl would have gone back to the shelter, which is just so sad and so devastating. So obviously the Norman family was just so touched. Their heart was moved, and they just decided to take her in. So they prepared a space for her, and I love it. They said especially, where I'm looking for the quote. They said, yes, we would take in this pregnant teenager and we would bring her and the baby back home. So she and her husband prepared a place for her. And this is what I was looking for. The young girl was desperate for a mom, her mom, and she was getting me instead, said Norman. Once the baby was born, Norman and her husband became foster grandparents at age 35 to this new little baby. They said the teenage girl is one of the strongest mothers they know, who has made her life better. And the journey has been nothing like originally imagined, wrote Norma, but I will throw caution to the wind and love fiercely the little girl who is mad at the world, the little boy who has been handed a very hard life, and the teenage mom who has nowhere to turn. I love that. So beautiful. Just everything that I don't want to say everything, because I say that every time I feel that way, but these stories are everything that is good and beautiful about a world. And in a world where we feel surrounded by fear and anxiety and coronavirus news, remember, people are good, people are kind, and we can be part of that good in the world. So I'm going to encourage you to keep up your good work, continue to be the light and hands and body of the church in Jesus Christ. And if you have a good in the world story of yourself or someone you love, or maybe a neighborhood community person, or even just a news story you saw and you think everyone should know about, feel free to send it to me over on Instagram or email me at conservativebabes@gmail.com. This is Deconstructing the Culture. I am your host, Elisa Steele. God bless you. God bless America. Hey there, thanks for listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube. I just want to thank you for being part of the Conservative Babes tribe, for supporting this. You have no idea how much that means. Hey, do me a favor, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, but not just subscribe, hit the little bell, because that's going to be your notification bell. Today, in today's world, subscriptions don't mean a whole lot on YouTube. You actually have to click the alarm bell so you can actually see when the podcast goes live. And of course, when I'm pregnant, things can be a little unpredictable about what time of day it's going to come out, because you never know. I could be throwing up or I could be feeling great. We'll see. Depends on the week. No, but really, thank you for being part of the tribe. Go ahead and click subscribe. If you're on iTunes, go ahead and leave a 5-star review and share with a friend. God bless you. Have a great day.